Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us at this Your Overseas Home webinar, Golden Visas in Europe, Discover Your Options for 2025, where I am joined by Jason Swan, Senior Partner at Holborn Assets. Jason, why don't you start off by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about Holborn Assets?
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me on the presentation, Christopher. My name, like I say, is Jason Swan. I'm one of the senior partners at Holborn Assets. We're a wealth management practice, now global. We have over 30 offices around the world, Christopher, and I'm based in Portugal, where I've been for the past 4 years, and previously in Spain, in Malaga for 5 years. So I've got a pretty good reference between the two for, of course, the topic of tonight's webinars. But yeah, by default, Christopher, we are a wealth management practice. Been around now for over 30 years. We manage over 3 billion euros between our offices globally. And around 6 years back, we introduced Holborn Passport, which is a service designed to help our clients achieve residency and citizenship by way of investment in different countries around the world. The most popular being Portugal so far, not too far, followed by Spain. And of course, I'll be covering off all the different golden visa routes into Europe as part of the session this evening. But yeah, I've been in Portugal, as I say, for quite some time now. Unfortunately, my Portuguese is equally as bad as my Spanish. But yeah, any questions, of course, around generally living in Portugal? Of course, the visa options to get into Europe for any EU route, and any questions on kind of financial planning. I'm also a fully qualified and regulated financial planner here in Portugal as well.
Excellent. Okay. Well, now, so what we're going to do is we're going to have Jason's got a presentation, and then we hope that you will come up with your own questions. I have a few in the bag to ask, but we do want your questions. So just to get viewers in the habit of clicking, I think the questions tab should be on your right hand side. You just click it, put your question in. We're the only people who can read it, and so ask any question and we will get as many answered as we can. Just to get you in the mood, why don't you tell us what country at the moment you're thinking of applying for a golden visa for? I think that would be interesting. And if you want to say what country you're in now, that would be interesting too. I guess it's a really interesting time for golden visas. I always felt that if you're rich enough, you can move anywhere. But given that we're not all Elon Musk, you can, depending on how much you can invest, your limit. Different countries have their different limitations, but also what you want to do there. So it's going to be fascinating to hear which countries offer the best golden visa and what our options are. Okay, so I'm going to pass it over to Jason, and I'll get back to you later.
Okay, yeah, super. So I'll jump in. So just for the day, Christopher, as well, just to clarify kind of what exactly it is that we do. But Holborn Assets provide a one-stop shop, if you like, to help our clients achieve residency and moving forward to citizenship during the following years, depending on which country they go down. But if you get a chance, of course, type Holborn Assets, type Jason Swan into Google to check out some of our recent awards within the industry, and of course, other content to help with due diligence as well. The programs that Holborn offer are not restricted just to Europe. They're also international residency and citizenship programs as well. This evening, of course, we're going to focus on Europe and the European golden visas. I'll hopefully be able to clarify some of the pros and cons of each route into Europe. Of course, fire any questions at me as we go, and we'll make sure we cover them off before we finish. And for any questions outside, of course, of what we'll be covering this evening in Europe, if you do want to venture into other international programs, then feel free to get in contact, and we're happy to walk you through that. So let's start with some basics. What is a golden visa? So yeah, some may already be pretty familiar with what we're talking about, but if you are just at the beginning of your golden visa journey, allow me to explain exactly what it is. And ultimately, a golden visa is kind of like a VIP pass to live, work, or study in a new country, quite simply. And you can make an eligible investment in line with that country's requirements, and that country will give you permission to enjoy living there. And that really, that's as simple as that. It's a golden pass for investing in the country. And some countries will also give you a route to getting a European passport, as we'll come on to shortly. But yeah, if you have a golden visa, you'll have rights to live, work, or study in that country. You'll also have access to other parts of the European Union. Some nationalities will already have that luxury, such as, like I said, the UK, and which something we take for granted sometimes. And for the US, you'll already have access to spend up to 3 months at a time in Europe. But for some nationalities with the golden visa, that door will open up, as well as access to other countries outside the EU. The Portugal Golden Visa Programme currently is the #1 choice into Europe. It is very much seen as the gateway into Europe, with over 20,000 applications submitted since it was introduced in 2012. And lastly, yeah, the kind of unique part, which we'll cover shortly, is that both Malta and the Portuguese Golden Visa programs are the only 2 countries whereas you can achieve EU citizenship without the need to become tax resident in that country. And so again, very unique. A lot of my clients, Christopher, are kind of asking with regard to a plan B perhaps in the future, not necessarily wanting to move into Europe right now, but quite like the idea of having a passport for the future, should they decide to retire in Europe or move there later on. But that's it. Yeah, if you have a golden visa, you have the rights to live in that country with very few additional requirements on top of the investment. Coming into Europe, there are some key benefits. Everyone has their own reasons for choosing the new country, of course, but in the main, you've got access as a golden visa holder to European healthcare, European education as well. That's both for the main applicant, but also the dependents of the application as well. So that can include children, can include parents as well, maybe healthcare for parents, education for children, but ultimately all of the benefits are available for all applicants on the application. Some countries offer favorable tax treatment by comparison to where you live at the moment. There may be incentives to reduce the tax that you pay on your income or your estate. And so that is, again, country specific, which happy to talk about on a more specific one-to-one basis, but lots together. And yeah, if you are looking for a path to citizenship, if you do hold a passport in Europe, it gives you the ability to live in any European country. So if you have a Portuguese passport or a Maltese passport or a Spanish passport for that matter, you then effectively have 27 passports all at the same time. So yeah, not necessarily a decision to make right now as to where you may move to, but if you're on the path to citizenship, it kind of opens up those options for you later on. So yeah, brief overview there on what comes. As far as the most popular programs at this very moment in time, as I mentioned before, the Portugal Golden Visa is by far the #1 choice right now, typically down to a few reasons, primarily because it is, as I mentioned before, one of only 2 countries in Europe that allows you to get a European passport without actually becoming tax resident in Portugal. You only have to be there for 2 weeks every 2 years, which is not a bad thing to ask. If you can force yourself for a horrible couple of weeks in Portugal, then yeah, at the end of those 5 years, you will have a passport that would allow you and your family to live in any European state. Also has a significantly lower investment requirement of 250,000 compared to Malta, which is over €1 million. So Portugal, by far the #1 choice. Spain follows in second place. Key differences between Spain and Portugal, that again, there's no minimum stay for the visa in Spain, but if you want to get a passport through Spain, then you have to physically live there for at least 10 years. But otherwise, you can still invest into real estate through Spain as well. Real estate was removed from Portugal at the end of 2023 with a view to try and curb inflated house prices at the time. But still possible in Spain, but just be mindful that the Spanish program is set to close in April this year. So for anyone that wants to buy property in Spain and get the golden visa, you have a very limited amount of time to do so. So I would encourage to get in contact as soon as possible. There is still time, but not too much. And then in third place is Greece. And Greece, in many respects, is similar to the Spanish program, apart from, of course, it gives you rights to live in Greece instead of Spain. Formally, there is a route to citizenship as well after 7 years, as long as you do live in Greece for those 7 years. But there's no minimum stay for the visa. And again, investments begin at 250,000 to qualify. So as far as which one to choose, it's very much subjective as to where you want to live, first and foremost. And if you want to live in Spain, naturally you would go down the Spain route. Likewise for Portugal and Greece. But the important kind of deciding factor is whether or not you want to achieve citizenship. And if you're happy to become tax resident in that country to become a citizen. If you're not wanting to move your tax residency to Spain or Greece, naturally Portugal would be the default option, whereas you can stay living in the country where you live now, but still get a passport in 5 years from now. But hopefully that gives you, like I said, super fast overview. There are many other factors to consider when choosing between the programs, but in the main, yeah, it comes down very much to where you want to live and if you want to go for citizenship later on as well. But hopefully that's nice and clear. If any questions on that, fire them at us.
Okay, excellent. Thanks very much. Yeah, we've got lots of questions coming in. Just to follow up on my earlier question, we've got questions about golden visas for France. That's one not covered, I'm afraid, but there may be investment options there. Portugal, Spain, one for Italy from the US. That's another one that might need a bit more investigation. Okay, and then we've got lots of questions about Portugal coming in too. So let's just ask a basic question: which is the easiest to get? I mean, in terms of processes and the bureaucracy working and all that kind of thing.
The easiest. They're all a similar process. I mean, there are certain documents that are required. The timing is similar between them. There isn't maybe one that's easier than the other. Certainly not to an extent that it would impact which one to go for, in my opinion.
Okay. So we wouldn't have to worry about, I don't know, Greek bureaucracy, say those wheels turning very slowly compared to a different country.
Well, over recent years, Portugal, there had been significant delays for the application process for Portugal. But as of November last year, there was a special task force assigned by the Council of Ministers in Portugal to clear all pending applications by the 2nd of June this year. So the Portugal program now is rapidly improved and is now a very similar process in time to Spain and Greece.
Okay. Now, which of them is the best to bring my family along?
Again, it's I suppose a personal preference. If the family wants to live in Portugal or Spain or Greece, then that would be the first one to consider. But things like education. If bringing children, you might want to consider the differences between the levels of education between the three. But ultimately, it's just where everyone would like to live, I suppose.
But in terms of which who is allowed to come? So, for example, for one, am I allowed to bring parents along?
Sure. Well, in which case, let's jump on a slide. So, the family members really fall into dependent category. So there's slight variations between the countries, but in the main, you can bring parents, If parents above the age of 65, they can automatically be included on the application without any proof of dependency. Children through Spain and Greece can be included up to the age of 18. Through Portugal can be included up to the age of 21. And it is possible to add children above those ages, but there is then some form of proof of dependency that's required to include them. But yeah, other than that, parents and children, and of course spouse. You don't want to forget your partner as well. Whether married or unmarried is generally fine, as long as you live at the same address, and we should be good to go. I think the biggest application I've done so far, I think I hold the record actually. We did 13 family members on the same application not too long back. So
wow.
As many as you can.
Okay. Okay. More questions. So so there's the investment element. There's also a good character reference, isn't there? So what does that involve exactly? Asking for a friend.
So in the event of well, it's actually pretty simple. As long as you don't have a criminal record or not I mean, we have had success with clients that have had misdemeanors from years gone by, but as long as there's no offences that would have resulted in jail time in the country of which you are applying for a visa, then you'll be okay. That is the main caveat. But otherwise, as long as you don't have an EU passport already, and you make an eligible investment, and of course you abide by the minimum stay requirements in the country that you're applying, there aren't any other restrictions. There's no age restrictions, there's no income requirements. Like I said, the golden visa is kind of like a VIP pass for making an investment in the country. So, but that's it. But they want to make sure that, of course, they're not encouraging any money laundering or any criminal activity as part of the process.
Of course. Okay. Can I ask? So the Spanish one is closing in April. That clearly doesn't mean I'm going to be kicked out in April, but how is the renewal process going to happen? Because I don't want to move my family there, buy a home there, and then find I have to leave in a couple of years. So how does that renewal process work?
So the investors are protected by the laws in place on the date of their application. So as long as new golden visa applications are submitted before the program formally changes, then all applications will be grandfathered into the program in years to come. So in short, the future closing of the program will not impact the investor in any way, either at the application stage or the renewal stage. So that's really the only thing to remember, just to submit your application before the program closes, and then you have nothing to worry about.
Okay, excellent. Which would you choose if you were, say, if you were if effectively a digital nomad, you can work anywhere, and you just want the one that has the most flexibility, it's the easiest to apply for. Which do you think you would apply for?
Well, I live in Portugal. I think personally Portugal is the best country in the world. It has a bit of everything, but yeah, it's a subjective question. I was in Spain for 5 years in Malaga. I've not lived in Greece. In fact, I tell you why, I have lived in Greece, but only for 3 months, a long time ago. But yeah, Portugal, I'd say, is the most popular choice for most people, because it has a bit of everything, whether you want a very relaxed kind of quality of life in the Algarve, or you want to be in the city centre of Lisbon, where there's lots going on year round. You have 3 international airports as well.
Yeah,
pretty easy.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to some of our viewer questions. So Philip has asked, if I am a UK citizen living in the UK but married to an EU national, do I need a golden visa to live and own a property in Portugal full time?
If married to an EU national, you will likely find that you can simply apply without the golden visa, if you are fortunate enough to already be married to a citizen of the EU. So no, probably not. You wouldn't need to make an investment on that. I mean, you might find it slightly faster to do it through the investment route, but in the main, no. If you're married to an EU national, you should be okay to do that through family reunification.
In terms of the investments,
Mhm.
are they? I mean, the investments, are they generally good investments? I know, if you can use your home as investment, that's great. But if you're investing in Portugal and you don't have, and you can't use your property, or in Spain after April, are the investments on offer good investments, would you say?
There are good and there are bad investments that would qualify for the visa. In Portugal, for example, you have the option of qualifying through a selection of investment funds. You can also invest into a Portuguese company. You can also set up a business and create jobs in Portugal. And you can also make a donation to the government if you're feeling generous. But if you go down one of the investment routes, then you have investment funds of different shapes and sizes. You can be very cautious with your investment selection, and there are also some very high risk and, dare I say the word, scrupulous investments that would qualify for the visa, but also have a very high level of investment risk. So for us, we simply access the fund directory, and we will of course provide our clients with access to all of the available and qualifying funds, and make sure they have the necessary information to decide which one is best suited for them. But where we can, it's best practice to make sure you work with an investment manager that has a good track record, whether there's a high level of security for capital first and foremost. We tend not to try to become we tend to focus on preservation of capital rather than profits on capital when it comes to the visa program, whilst of course abiding by quite strict requirements placed by the government for the visa as well.
Okay, and so Mira has asked, I am interested in Portugal. I have dual nationality, a British Swiss passport. Is one passport easier than another?
Nope, both the same. I was just thinking, then is Switzerland in the EU?
It's not in the EU, but it is in the EAA. I'd be surprised, Mira, if you can't just move to Portugal on that passport. Yeah, because that's the whole, without wanting to get into Brexit, that was one of the issues, that if you're in the EEA, I think you can probably just move there. But we've heard that it can be a great investment anyway, so it's still worth talking to, definitely worth talking to Holborn, and Jason about those investments. Okay, let's move on to another question. Mariam, I am Iranian. How can my family apply for a golden visa from Iran?
The same way everybody else would apply for a golden visa. And we just need to, sometimes there can be some restrictions from Iran, but off the top of my head, I don't think there's any difference as it stands for the European programs.
Okay. Trudy has asked, does Greece include Cyprus? I think that's a separate process, but can you tell us anything about Cyprus's golden visa?
The Cyprus golden visa, and no, I can't say a lot about the Cyprus golden visa, to be fair. It's not something that ever comes up, to be fair. I need to check.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Okay. I know there's been some changes in it, but so do contact us about that one. But okay.
Yeah, I mean, if any questions specific to Cyprus, always best practice to, like I say, to book some time in. We'll put you in contact with the right expert to give you that information, and help work out if that's the best way forward. Yeah,
sure. There's the QR code gone up there, so if viewers want to just point their camera at it, you should. In fact, I'm going to try it with mine. You should be able to book an appointment. Is that going to work? It has worked. Yes, that has worked. So I would try that. It's an excellent way of getting an appointment with Jason. Okay, and Malta as well, because that's another option which I'm sure we can also talk about. Terry, sorry, go on.
Yep. Sorry,
Okay.
go after you.
Terry has asked, is there a beneficial age for pensioners to reduce the period of qualification for a golden visa in any EU country?
I'm not sure I understand that question there, Christopher.
Sure. I'm not sure I understand the question. Of course, I mean there are other visa options. There's always a non-lucrative visa option for EU countries. But email in with your question, Terry, and we will get that one answered for you. Okay, Sharon has asked, what types of investments qualify? I know you've highlighted a few.
Well, generally speaking, across all countries, you have the option of property for Greece and Spain, and you have the option of investment funds through all of the countries. For some countries, you'll have options of simply putting money in a bank account. And with the likes of Spain and Greece, we've got the option of real estate. I'm not sure if we covered that, but it varies depending on the country. And obviously looking to give a kind of a brief overview of generally coming to Europe at this stage. But what I would do maybe on a one-to-one basis is talk more specifically about the country that is, of course, of interest. And then we can look at all the investment options and, of course, the costs involved, the legal costs and the government fees and things like this. So, yeah, would always encourage just to book some time in, and then we can focus more on one particular program.
Okay, Trudy has asked, does the investment have to be cash or can it be a loan or mortgage?
It can be a loan or a mortgage as long as the money comes from an account in your name. So, for example, and again, the answer varies slightly depending on the country, but the cash needs to come from an account in your name. You cannot mortgage directly in the country that you're investing into. So you can remortgage your home in the UK, for example, or in the US and bring the cash from that mortgage into the investment. But in the main, you can borrow the money. That's fine. You can mortgage, but it would need to be a cash transfer ultimately that goes into the investment.
So you couldn't buy a property in Spain with a mortgage, but you could get some equity release or mortgage your own home in the UK or the US and use that.
Well, in Spain, if you go down the property route, you can mortgage as long as the cash element is at least the qualifying criteria. So if it's 500,000 qualifying, that part needs to be cash, and then you can look to mortgage above the 500,000, if you wish, and of course on the basis it's a residential property and not a commercial one. Okay.
Jacqueline has asked about, she's in New York. I guess the same rules apply to Americans as they do to the British.
Pretty much, yeah. And there's just one slide I'll bring up here as well, because I mean we've seen a 300% increase in applications since the US election, and I'd say maybe 80, maybe 90% of our clients are coming across from the US, and there are some additional points to be mindful of. There are certain reporting requirements back to the States if you're investing overseas. Not all investments that would qualify for a visa are particularly US friendly, shall we say. So that's something that we need to factor in at that point. But also we've seen a lot more Americans using their retirement accounts as a way of funding the investment as well. Now, if you have access to cash, great. But if you are taking money out of retirement accounts, there can be early withdrawal penalties, there can be taxes to pay. But we've seen more clients now investing, whereas a withdrawal is not made, and actually keeping the investment within their retirement account, and which can save, it can save a lot in penalties and taxes. So this is something that can be done for US nationals. It's not a service provided by Holborn, but as part of our service, we can put them in contact with an advisor in the States to help you structure your assets in line to keep everything within the retirement account for US tax purposes. Okay.
We've almost run out of time. I'm just going to rattle a few questions. I think I know the answer, but not everyone will do. Cindy has asked, what about France?
What about France? France, again, I'm not too sure if France actually has a golden visa program.
It doesn't have a traditional one. It's not mentioned in all the things, but like places like the UK, if you've got enough money, if you're going to invest a couple of million, then you're probably fine. But it doesn't. It certainly hasn't got one of the property ones.
Yeah,
so you might.
There is an element of golden visa in France. It very rarely comes up. I mean, we can do a bit of digging on that. Like I say, we can ultimately explore any golden visa programs. But yeah, I've never been asked about the French one. Strangely,
Well,
but please, get in contact. We'll take a look together.
Mira has asked, should the application for a golden visa be made outside of the destination country, or can we move to the country during the process?
Could you say that one again? Sorry, Chris.
Yeah. Does the application for a golden visa have to be made from outside of the country, or can you move there first?
So the application is done from within the country, but that's kind of unrelated to can you move there first. So you don't have permission to move to the country until you physically receive the visa. As far as the golden visa is concerned. But the application is done from within the country, so there's no need to go to the local consulate, for example, as with some non-investment visas. Everything's actually done remotely. Everything is done on the computer up until we need to do the biometrics appointment, which is the first time at which you need to physically travel to the country to do your fingerprints and to have your photo taken. But up until that time, everything's done remotely, no trips to the embassy required, and then you'll have access once the visa is issued.
And just as a kind of final question, does almost everyone who applies actually get it? If they fulfill the criteria, can you pretty much guarantee that they'll get it, or is there any kind of element of chance or having a difficult immigration officer on the day who picks up some quirk? Is it quite simple, I suppose, is what I'm trying to ask?
It is, and in short, I mean, just looking at Portugal alone, we've done over 2,000 applications now, Christopher, and we've maintained a 100% success rate. So it is very clear. Unlike, for example, the US programs, it's not a subjective application, so it's very clear. As long as we meet those criteria, then we'll be good to go. But if there's any possibilities of a rejection, we will highlight those before any investments are made to make sure that there's no lost money if there was an unexpected criminal charge, for example, from a couple of years back that was forgotten about.
Okay, fantastic. Right, we have run out of time now, but we've covered it in quite a lot of detail. I'm so pleased with the last answer. You can't argue with 2,000 and a 100% approval rating. So thank you to Jason for all your insightful tips and advice, and thank you to our audience for asking such good questions. Before we finish, I'd like to ask anyone who's found this webinar helpful to leave a review on Trustpilot, and there may be a link coming. There you go. There's a link coming up, and we will be emailing you with Jason's contact details. But you can also use your phone if you're on your phone. I know it gets complicated, so we'll send you those contact details. And thank you, Jason, and thank you to our viewers, and happy property hunting and move to Europe. Thank you very much.
Very much.
Bye-bye.